So, a certain YouTuber by the name of John Q Gamer released a new theory video called "This is why FF7 Remake exists: the Shattered Planet Massive Theory." I saw this. This actually got sent my way a few times from a few different people, and I initially wasn't sure what to think of it, but I've heard from a lot of people that it's actually very good, because I do get theory stuff kind of thrown my way pretty frequently, so I have to sort of picky and choosy about which ones to like, where I really want to go fucking deep into. And Blitz, in fact, was the one who told me that he knows this guy. He's watched this video, and apparently it's pretty interesting. Definitely makes you think. So I really enjoyed Subtext's theory crafted video that explained why the ending of Rebirth was both unsatisfying, but also why it was sort of almost meant to be that way. And with us being literally on the cusp of part 3 being revealed, right? I feel like that is going to happen here, potentially even in the next few months. I am on that FF7 high, and I want to get some, I really, like, my head's been reeling, spinning with more theories and stuff as we potentially see what the future holds for this. So if someone has an explanation as to maybe why the games are the way they are, yeah, I want to see that. I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of curious. So before we get into it, real quick, I'm going to post the link in chat here. This is the video. Please do me a hot favor. Go in there, like that video, check out their other content, consider subscribing to John Q Gamer. I'm sure that this was a big endeavor for them. It's a 40-minute video. I'm sure this was probably took a lot of time and effort to put together. So please do me a favor, send them some love. Yeah, if you're on YouTube, I'll also have the link down in the description below. So make sure to check it out, do the same. And let's see what the hell this video is all about.
What if I were to tell you that all along, from the very beginning, and especially right up to the end, Sephiroth has been telling us the answers to all of our questions, right in front of us the whole time, with many of the elements in Rebirth further expanding our understanding and supporting that assertion. What I'm about to present to you is something I haven't seen many people discussing, so let's break it all down.
Okay, all right.
The first concept we're going to explore is the nature of the planet itself and how it actually functions. Here are some of the things we know about the planet of Gaia, as well as some associated questions
talk about
for which we may not
NPC,
have all the answers
right?
at this time. According to
legendary
Bugenhagen,
NPC.
Planetology is, in part,
not simply the study of the cosmos and the celestial bodies that dwell in it. Rather, it is a quest to comprehend the cyclical nature of life.
That means that life and the planet operate in a
cycle of continuous convergence and divergence,
which can be studied. We also know mankind was born from its soil, and upon death, the body withers and returns to the planet.
Right.
Similarly, the mind, spirit, soul comes from the Lifestream, and at the time of death,
our bodies may disappear when we die, but our spirits still live on.
Yes, that is definitely something we have learned about this remake series in general, right? These motherfuckers are sometimes they're just so fucking buff, they will not stay dead, ever.
Return to the planet, rejoin the Lifestream, and in time give rise to new life.
we also know the Lifestream is
an apt name, though it is as much a reservoir as it is a stream, being the sum of the planet's spiritual energy.
The Lifestream is also comprised of the accumulated memories, emotions, knowledge, hopes, and dreams of every individual who has ever lived.
It is the very essence of our star, the blood coursing through its planetary veins. And if ever that essence were to be entirely depleted,
planet runs out of energy. It and everything on it dies.
The planet needs the Lifestream to survive. And the planet has a will of its own.
The flow of the great river that is the planet, from inception to oblivion.
Right.
And it exercises that will via the Whispers.
And technically the
Whispers are
perhaps best described as arbiters of fate. They are drawn to those who attempt to alter destiny's course and ensure they do not.
Like capital D? Destiny? And you're saying that that flow is somehow fixed?
So if we're destined for a bleak future, these Whispers will try to keep us on that course?
They're led by the Whisper Harbinger, which is a weapon just
We're destined for Avon children, all right? There is no escape.
as much as those featured in Rebirth. The Whispers exist and function across all worlds which make up the planet. The Whispers can only be seen by those who defy destiny, or when coming into contact with someone who attempts to alter the course of destiny.
Right.
Are you blind?
And as introduced in Rebirth,
The planet encompasses a multitude of worlds, ever unfolding. Some quickly perish, while others endure. Yet even the most resilient worlds are doomed to fade.
this new and mysterious concept of multiple worlds was fascinating for open-minded players who wanted the Final Fantasy VII they knew and loved, but more significantly expanded. Personally, I fell into this camp myself. As it turns out, such a prospect was concerning for players of the OG Final Fantasy VII, who would have preferred for Square Enix to have made an exact one-to-one remake of the original PS1 game with better visuals on modern hardware.
And to be honest, I was in that boat, man. Like, I didn't really necessarily want them to try to, like, go beyond the scope of what the original was. I just give me the original game. Just make it, like, look pretty. But now I'm all on board with this shit, bro. Fuck. Take me on an adventure, please, all right? FF7 team, all right? I am on this ship, all right? Let's go.
In fact, this sentiment was vocalized enough that after Remake debuted in 2020, fans began to speculate whether the Whispers, and their role as custodians to maintain the sacred course of the story's events, were a meta-level reference by the developers to represent purist fans' desires for zero change to the original game. The creatives behind Remake and Rebirth obviously made another call, however, and the concept of these worlds has become canon. But when and how does the planet decide to form these new worlds? And what causes them to be created?
Right.
Based on the information available in Rebirth, it appears one way these worlds are born comes through a divergence from the intended will of the planet. When choices are made which branch from the course of destiny, it appears new worlds are potentially made as represented by a rainbow effect seen in Rebirth. However, in order for an individual to break from the will of the planet, a world containing that person must already exist in the first place. So it's reasonable to conclude that the planet also materializes worlds and populates them with all forms of life by tapping into the spiritual energy of the Lifestream, as stated by Bugenhagen previously. Additionally, one Rebirth NPC also theorizes that the planet may even create worlds from more metaphysical sources as well.
The NPC.
So, my parents are no longer with us.
This fucking lady.
But I believe they're still out there, on another plane. I've been reading a bunch of theories about this alternate world in the hope of going there someday. And over the course of my studies, I stumbled across a fascinating theory. It addressed the issue of what the Lifestream is, arguing that spiritual energy is actually a manifestation of our knowledge and memories. Like I said, it's a fascinating theory, but it's incomplete. What about our hopes and dreams? We remember those, don't we?
It's crazy to me that this is so, like, the backbone of what this shit's all about. It's insane to me that this is all put into, like, this very easily missable NPC dialogue. And let's be honest, at a certain point, you probably start to just kind of drown out most of the NPC dialogue anyway. Like, this lady's over here just like, let me explain the plot of the game to you.
So what if spiritual energy doesn't distinguish between our real, lived memories and the unrealized desires buried deep in our hearts? What if coming into contact with that energy allowed us to peer through the looking glass, so to speak? It's just an idea, but I hope to find the truth someday.
Aerith seems to back up this theory by indicating that one world was,
let's just call it a dream. My dream, to be precise.
Right.
Was Aerith able to manifest the date world via the Lifestream using her hopes and dreams? We also know that all inhabitants of Gaia seem to have separate existences across these disparate worlds. But how exactly does this process work when a consciousness re-enters the Lifestream and helps in the creation of a new life?
This almost makes me wonder if the idea, maybe what this person is going for here, is that what if the world that we're in this game that is seemingly that we've been playing through, and it's also pretty different from what FF7 original was. It's different, but also not. Almost makes you wonder, are we gonna be like saying like this world is nothing but is also temporary or something, right? Like a temporary existence. I don't know if I would like that, right? Because again, that sort of kind of goes along the same idea of like it was all a dream. Like I don't know. It would depend on how would that affect things, right? How would that actually affect what the grand scope of the narrative is, right? Because I think a lot of us feel that this is being set up so that we don't get advent children, right? We don't get a world where people die of this like disease, essentially. Cloud goes through his second depression phase and we gotta fucking make this multi-million-dollar movie to explain it.
I think there's three main possibilities. Is a person's spiritual energy diffused and used to create new, completely different life within the same world where they died? Or is a completely new life created, but in a different world instead? Or, hear me out, are the people reborn as themselves, but in a different world? So their spiritual energy remains, but when new life is born out of the Lifestream, it's still them.
And why does the stamp dog look different every time?
Sephiroth is aware this multitude of world exists and is, at least in some manner, connected as one conscious being across the worlds. He also appears to exist outside of any specific world at the edge of creation as well. Sephiroth also uses the black robes to physically manifest himself and exert control and manipulation of people and events. Based on Aerith's uncanny knowledge of events during Remake,
He's my bodyguard. And a soldier. Pretty cool, huh?
Huh?
I guessed. From the sword.
and certain sequences of Rebirth,
Whatever happens, don't blame yourself.
is there enough evidence to deduce that Aerith also possesses some power which is not contained to singular worlds?
Omni
What
Aerith.
do you mean?
All made whole forever.
There's no such thing as forever.
We also learned that worlds that are fading or about to expire have a rift which becomes visible in the sky. But what's the
Right.
nature of this rift and what does it exactly represent?
And that's the thing that's like, right, potentially at the end here. I almost think that's the indication what the FF7 wants us to wonder is the world that we're playing through. If we see that rift, does that mean that this place is also doomed to die? Or is it Cloud just losing his fucking mind, right? Like, it's Cloud. That's just very possible because he seems to be the only one that sees it too. That's very odd.
If we take a look at Zack's experiences, a rift was not present in the skies of the Terrier world during the opening prologue of Rebirth.
Right.
Zack only first sees it after being told by Elmyra that people are saying the world is ending. But Elmyra and the other NPCs of the Sector 5 slums seem to have known about the rift for a while, and they most certainly wouldn't have grappled with why it was in the sky or what it meant in the short time it took for Zack to move Aerith and hide away from Shinra until Elmyra could come to them.
That's a really good point, actually. I didn't think about that. That rift wasn't immediately noticeable at the start of the game. It'd be kind of a hard thing to just be like not notice, by the way. Like, even with all the shit going out and be like, anyway, so I'm in the middle trying to save Aerith and there's a giant gaping hole in the sky. That's interesting, yeah. And everyone seems to have known about it for some time.
So the reasonable conclusion is Zack couldn't have seen it at first, but then only could after Elmyra mentioned it and recent events caused Zack to feel as though the world or his world could be ending.
Well, here's another thing too then. Okay, so it mentions it to him, right? That gives him an awareness about it. But at the same time, doesn't Cloud do the exact same thing for Barrett by saying, whatever you do, don't look up. He'll bring some awareness to it. Maybe it wasn't specific enough because he looked up and there was nothing there. So...
Are these rifts only visible to people who have accepted that the world is going to end? And is that why only Cloud can see the one at the end of Rebirth, but the rest of the party cannot?
Don't look up.
Has he accepted it?
Well, now I gotta look.
Yeah.
Fine, but don't let it get to you.
Don't let what get to me?
It's not real. Right. Interesting.
Now that we've discussed at least 3
I don't think he thinks
potential
it's
ways
real,
the
though.
various worlds might be created, how are these different versions of Gaia connected via the Lifestream? Do they share one Lifestream? Does each world have their own measure of the Lifestream? And how or why do worlds endure or fade at different paces? Is the length of their survival based on their own shares of the Lifestream? While we don't have enough information to make a concrete determination one way or the other about how the worlds exist and interact with the Lifestream, we do know a few details with which we can establish a small foundation to build upon in Part 3. All worlds are connected via the Lifestream, as demonstrated by Cloud seeing through to Aerith's dream world while he was sleeping, or when Aerith could feel Zack's hand.
Right.
We do know that it is possible for an individual world's portion of the Lifestream to dry up, as we saw that happen at the empty reactor in Rebirth.
Seems it's all out of Mako. Pump's still sucking away, but the only thing it's pulling up is dirt.
Ooh. It's so funny. Like, I forgot about this. It's funny, like, there's so many things that happen in these games. Again, little moments like this that until you start putting, like, forming some connection as to what it could mean, you, like, completely forget about it. I completely forgot about this. That there was a point that where Biggs is sitting at the edge in the Mako reactor and they're sucking up, where it sucks up Mako for energy, and he literally is like, there's nothing in there. There's nothing left. The idea that the Mako is gone, so that means this planet is doomed. It's nothing, there's no Lifestream, there's nothing there, so it's just gonna... That is what marks the end of a world. Even in these shattered worlds. Shattered.
Meaning? That the Lifestream's bone dry.
Yeah.
Bomb one reactor, bomb them all. Planet's done either way.
We also know worlds can be united or parted through external influence which doesn't come from the planet, such as when Sephiroth parted Cloud and Zack at the end of Rebirth, or when Sephiroth sent Zack between worlds at the church. And we know worlds can also be merged into one another via external intervention, which seems at least in part what Sephiroth is up to.
Oh, that's an interesting. God damn, dude, so much, like, this is what I mean. Like, these games are meticulously crafted, right? That's why people get really worried. We're really worried at the end of Rebirth. We're like, I don't know if these fuckers know what they're doing. They're just kind of throwing shit together. But, like, look at this shit. I never noticed this before, of these two world lines fusing together like they're fucking like cells or something, fusing into one here. I didn't even
we know worlds
make
can
this
also
connection.
Be merged into one another.
Look at this
via external intervention, which seems at least in part what Sephiroth is up to. What effect does this merger have on the inhabitants of those worlds?
Reunion.
And how does this type of merger impact the Lifestream?
Listen.
Sephiroth also clued us into the idea that something feeds off of negative energy such as despair and grief. Either Sephiroth himself, Genova, or the unification of these worlds. But why is Sephiroth trying to feed the planet with negative energy?
War can put things right. beget anger, desolation, hatred, and in its wake, new unity. A people rejuvenated, and a planet once more made whole.
Interesting. A war being created, because that's the idea, is that that's set up in Rebirth. The idea that this war between Wutai and Midgar, right? It's like essentially returning again. Again, this is something that did not happen in the original, right? Similarly, how Yuffie's role in the game is now sparked much more by Wutaian revolution rather than simply just accepting the lot that's been given to them. That's how it was in the original. Like Yuffie, like out of all the characters, Yuffie really had like no reason to be with us at all. There was like, she had very little to actually do in the story. And even Wutai, when you go there, they're just kind of like, just kind of hanging out. They don't really give a shit. There's no real like conflict there. It turned into a tourist spot. So like, that's so different. The idea is that this war could be used as a way to feed off of more negative emotions beyond even simply Aerith's death, which obviously affects us, but affects us on a small scale because it's only our group that's really going to care about that. I mean, and the folks probably in Midgar who know Aerith, obviously, but they're not going to know that for a while. That's sort of to give me that feeling of, too, that this is thinking more about that this is actually a world line. Even the most resilient of world lines are doomed to end. Maybe that's exactly what this is. Maybe that's where this person is going with this. I feel like that might be what they're trying to say here, is that this game, this series we're playing through that is so vastly different from the original is nothing but a doomed world line. A doomed, like, piece of a possibility, you know?
As a last question around this concept of a multitude of worlds, did they always exist and the planet has always been made up of them?
Right.
I want to dig into that point specifically next, as I believe all of the lore and information we've already reviewed from Remake and Rebirth can aid us in not only understanding the mechanics of how the planet and its worlds function, but provide us with a fairly reasonable answer to this question and its greater impact on what's to come. But before we can start putting these pieces together, there's one more topic which looms over everything in Remake and Rebirth, which must be discussed.
Jenova? I had a feeling. Da-da-da.
There's still so much we don't know about Jenova. Obviously, the devs have been intentional about holding back key pieces of information to be revealed in Part 3. But even if we look across the entire compilation of Final Fantasy VII, from the original game to now, so much of the lore around Jenova has just never been explored.
Yeah.
And while we don't have anywhere close to a puzzle box to know what the picture will ultimately resemble, I do think Remake and Rebirth presented us with just enough pieces that we can begin fitting them together and get a rough idea of what parts of it will look like. Let's review what we do know. Jenova came from space and crashed on Gaia roughly 2,000 years ago.
Right.
Long ago, a wound marred the northern lands.
The specimen found in strata dating back 2,000 years smiled with what could only be described as ethereal grace.
Up to this point, I feel like Jenova has always just been seen as like an enigmatic force that resembles a parasite. It like lands on a planet and consumes everything by any means necessary, essentially. It does whatever it has to essentially get that planet to be destroyed so that it can then use that planet as a vessel to go to other planets and unleash more of it. For why? I don't know. It's like the alien. It's like the xenomorph. Why does he just fucking want to murder everything? He doesn't even need to eat. It's just like, it just is. It's like a force of nature.
She needed a name, and so I dubbed her Jenova.
This raises the question of how Jenova actually came to Gaia. Did Jenova arrive via the Gee's homeworld that it had already consumed? When Guy Natak is narrating during the final battle of the Guy village, he describes the end of their homeworld.
With the passing of eons, the star we called home began to wane, until at last it was subsumed by your own. The earth shook, seas boiled, skies shattered, and time stopped. Few of my people survived the chaos and calamity. Those who did began a new life here. But to the planet, we were not welcome, not in life nor in death.
Jenova is referred to as the Calamity from the Skies and is a destroyer of worlds. And according to Bugenhagen, the Guy arrived many millennia ago. Is it possible that these two are connected? One additional possibility is that the Guy summoned Jenova via the Black Materia before the Cetra could steal it. Guy Natak stated,
"From the planet, we claim the greatest of materia, a most sacred treasure, and imbued it with our desire for freedom. After an eternity, the materia began to stir, and thus did we rejoice, knowing that salvation was within our grasp."
And again, dude, the fact that, at least seemingly, this guy is the narrator from the original release teaser for Remake Part 1. People have looked it up. Apparently, it's not the exact same voice actor, because I think the original was Jiraiya. The guy who played Jiraiya from Naruto or whatever. And I don't know if that is actually this guy, but it's clearly to me like he's putting on a voice impression that is very similar. And the things that he says are also very similar to what is said in that trailer. That's what shows how much they've thought about the construction of this narrative, right? Like they knew about this shit well before they started talking about it in Rebirth, right? Again, none of that shit is brought up even a little bit in Remake, right? We don't know anything about the Guy or all this other shit. Like that all gets brought up here, right? That the idea that the Guy, instead of just being this random tribe, which is what it was in the FF7 OG, and they had like basically one point in the story where they were sort of significant and then they're just forgotten. There are these weird space alien guys that came to this planet and cannot die because the planet refuses to accept them into the Lifestream. That's fucking cool. That's crazy. And seems like something that is gonna play a major part into where this story is gonna go.
Perhaps as the Cetra locked away the Black Materia, Jenova arrived as a result. Or is there some other explanation entirely for Jenova's arrival?
Yeah, it's a good point. It's a good question.
Jenova also
why Jenova came
possesses
here.
an ability to mimic the dead.
Though in time we triumphed over the calamity visited upon us by the stars, tragedy would nevertheless be our ultimate reward. For the children of men feared us. For the children of man envied us. Perhaps their enmity was seeded by our celestial adversary. None can say. A deceiver that stole the faces of the dead, of mothers and fathers, sisters and brothers lost.
Yeah.
With their voices did it sow the seeds of discord among our people, among the children of man.
The Cetra were the original stewards of the planet prior to Jenova's arrival, and they could communicate with the planet to understand its desires and needs. And we know the Cetra stood against Jenova, just as they did the Guy.
It has ever been our sacred duty to protect our planet against any who would threaten it. They who came from without were one such threat.
It's really interesting. It is such a fascinating, again, something that was not even, this was barely touched upon in the original. And it's such a cool idea because it actually, in a lot of ways, the Cetra in the original were just like these mystical dudes, right? That were seemingly as like, ah, yes, we protect the planet. They were good or something. This actually paints them in a different way where there was sort of like, by the end of the whole Guy scenario in Red's story, right? I was feeling pretty bad for them where I'm like, That is kind of bullshit, that they just can't even, like, all they want is to die. All they want is to move on. And yet the planet rejects them. And that just seemed like pretty cruel, right? It seems sort of like, why? Your dirty, dank, gee genes can't be part of our planet, bitch. You're not worthy. And they see that as a threat. And it makes you wonder, like, how much of what they are is a threat. Are they always a threat? Will that lead, will them coming into the live stream, is it actually a threat, or is it them being almost like planet xenophobic? You're not allowed in here. We don't know where you're from. It's so funny that way, right? And I mean, Jenova herself has definitely, like, I think if there's anything that is just like, this is just bad, this is just evil, it's Jenova, right? I don't know if we've seen necessarily a lot of connection to Jova by the Gi from Rebirth to show that there is, like, necessarily, like, they didn't really say that we summoned Jenova or anything, right? That's the idea of, like, where did Jenova come from and why are they here? That's what they're sort of positing. But it would be interesting if that was in some way connected. If there was actually a reason why. The reason Jenova was here was something related to the Gi. Because then that would sort of paint them again as they were really here to destroy the planet. When really, it sounds like the reason they actually are here is not to do that, though. They were here because their own planet died out. They needed some place to go. And they were rejected, at least according to them. So it's almost like the he said, she said between the Cetra and the Gi. And again, that creates a very gray morality that is so much more interesting than just being like, yeah, we're mystical people. They're the good guys. They love the planet. Everybody's happy.
Lastly, we know that Jenova was successful in basically killing off pretty much almost all of the Cetra.
Right.
Alas, the ancients themselves are long gone. 2,000 years ago, a meteor brought an end to their civilization.
Regardless, we had been forsaken by fate, abandoned to unquenchable anger and unbearable grief, condemned and driven forth, powerless to forestall the coming of our end. For the planet did we lay down our lives in battle, and in death returned to her embrace.
But before their fiery end, did the ancients find their promised land?
I like to think they did. I just wanted the narrator to be like, did they find their promised land? I like to think they did.
Even now, we have only to wonder.
However, since Jenova did not originate from the Lifestream, it couldn't rejoin the Lifestream, just as the Gi could not.
Those not born of the Lifestream can never join its flow. One cannot return to that from which one did not arise.
Yet our adversary did not. Could not. Thus did it fall into a deep slumber. And in the long silence of its sleep, it was given the name Jenova.
Yeah, this is interesting too, where again, on one hand, we have them saying that seemingly Jenova beat them, right? It seemingly Jenova managed to summon a meteor that brought an end to their civilization, that killed off all the Cetra, albeit, not Aerith. And then the Cetra saying that they managed to contain and seal basically Jenova, because Jenova's death she can't return to the planet because she has nowhere to go. So instead, she just exists in a weaker form.
Long silence, thus did it fall into a deep slumber. And in the long silence of its sleep, it was given the name Jenova.
Jenova.
Now that we've explored the nature of the planet, its multiple concurrent realities, the Lifestream which bridges them, and the external entity known as Jenova, I'll start to fit some of the puzzle pieces together in a manner which makes the most sense to me. And to do so, I'll start where we left off a moment ago and work backwards.
All right.
How exactly did the Cetra manage to stop Jenova? Jenova was a life force from beyond the Cetra's own world.
Right.
Its nature was unknown to the ancients, and Jenova possessed the power to adjust its appearance, speech, and behaviors to imitate other creatures. We know from the scene in the Temple of the Ancients that the Cetra teamed up with humans to fight Jenova. From what we've learned, the Cetra essentially went almost extinct, and the only result their alliance with the humans could muster was to force Jenova into a form of stalemate and stasis. But how was this achieved? Perhaps the Cetra knew enough about the planet to be aware of its multiple worlds, and how the Lifestream connects them. But even if they did, how would that help them in their battle to subdue Jenova? Here's the reasonable explanation to me, and the case I'll make for how the blurry picture on the puzzle box looks to me by the end of Rebirth.
Alright.
The planet was once whole, and served as the home of the ancients until the arrival of Jenova. Recognizing they were unable to beat this alien entity, and with the survival of the planet they loved at stake, they were forced to split their home into multiple realities. The first rainbowed action, perhaps? The Cetra used their knowledge of the Lifestream to divide the planet into a multitude of worlds, and by doing so, Jenova, who was unable to be absorbed into the Lifestream, was instead pulled apart and splintered across all those worlds. It's reasonable to conclude that the Cetra, having immense and intimate knowledge of the planet and the Lifestream, might have been the first to break the will of the planet, with the understanding that it would split the planet into multiple worlds, and that all life of the planet would continue via the Lifestream. However, Jenova would be unable to wreak havoc upon the planet in its disassembled state.
Interesting. That's interesting. My one thing about this idea, though, is that they've already made clear that these threads, these world lines, are all destined to end, right? At some point. Even the most resilient, they're all doomed to disappear. And also, are seemingly also being created, right? That's the idea, is like, I think we still don't even have enough information as to when and how all of these things are being created during some crazy rainbow effect. So is the idea that we're breaking apart Jenova and putting them in these different worlds, but if that world ends, does she come back again? Because when they did, if the idea is, okay, we're going to split Jenova off and put her in all these different places, but that means that there are also a bunch of world lines that don't exist yet. And then there are also a number of world lines at that point that they've created that are going to disappear, right? So to me, this almost seems, at the initial behest of seeing this idea, this seems, I don't know how much this actually lines up with what they've been describing to me. Because it'd be one thing if these were constant, right? If these worlds didn't just end, they just continued to exist. There are just this many different world lines, and they continue to exist unbeknownst to us in the background. Different world lines, different scenarios, different possibilities of things that could occur. But the fact that they're constantly in this flux, right? They're constantly being created and they're constantly disappearing. Like, what is happening then? Are we like, if there was like a finite amount of Jenovas being split among these, then what's happening to the ones that end and then begin again? Like, are they just shattered and moved to a new one? Like, that's where my initial feeling is, where I'm like, it's interesting, but at the same time, I also don't know if it matches up necessarily with what has been given to us.
It's also fairly plausible that the Whispers were created by the planet as a reaction to the Cetra's defiance and subsequent disappearance. Without the Cetra to care for it, the planet may have formed its first weapon, the Whisper Harbinger, as a means of ensuring its own will is followed. Based on this theory, the events which play out on an individual world are unable to bring about a final resolution for Sephiroth, Jenova, or the Gi, because those events are contained to that single reality. As such, it stands to reason that in order for anything to truly affect these aspects of our story, The disparate worlds of the planet would need to come back together, a homecoming of sorts. And since we have yet to see any
reunion
across all of the worlds of Final Fantasy VII that resembles the actual Promised Land,
This isn't the Promised Land. I mean, just look around. It can't be.
That's a good point. That's actually a fair point that technically, even in the original Final Fantasy VII, we never see a Promised Land. The Promised Land seemingly is, by the end of that game, you just go, oh, it was never there. It was a hoax. It was a dream. It's what like Shinra and Sephiroth like hoped and dreamed that there was, or seemingly, right? Genova, Sephiroth, whoever. They believed that it existed out there somewhere, but it wasn't really there, right? You get through the whole game, there's no Promised Land.
Not with all this sadness and anger.
This place. Is it the Promised Land?
No, this is my
I'm
house.
Sorry, but I don't think it is.
Of course. Figures.
it's also logical that the scriptures passed down by the ancients tell of a time when the planet they loved would once again be made whole, a thought which, to them, probably seemed like a distant promise to return the land back to how it was before.
Unto her promised land shall we one day return. By her loving grace and providence, may we take our place in paradise.
By the way, I love this fucking section of Remake. Like, can we just make this in real life? Can we make like a holographic, crazy, like 4D ride where I could just like walk through this shit and like Cloud's like chilling next to me and we're going through like the creation of the Citra and all this stuff. Fuck it. Or I just do that for the whole game. Like I go through the entire plot of FF7 in the span of like 5 minutes and I'm just like walking around and shit's happening around me. Well, this is great, dude. Can someone just make a recreation of Shinra Tower and just do all this shit? We could sneak in there and fucking murder the CEO. That'd be awesome.
If this is truly how the puzzle fits together, it appears Sephiroth may have figured out the box's cover art as well, with his words and actions backing it up. Let's evaluate what we know about Sephiroth and his master plan based on what has been presented in Remake and Rebirth. Cloud believes
he wants to finish what he started. He wants to reclaim his birthright and rule over the planet with Genova at his side.
Aerith seems to think he's going against the way that things should be.
Right. Omni Aerith.
And you're wrong. Everything about you is wrong.
There's no such thing as forever.
No. You're wrong.
We also know Sephiroth doesn't want Cloud to die. Rather, he wants Cloud's help.
Yeah.
I have a favor to ask. Our beloved planet is dying. Slowly. Silently. Painfully. Can you bear to see the planet suffer? Cloud. That which binds us together would be no more, and I would be loath to live in such a world, which is why I must ask you this one favor. Don't worry, it's a simple thing. Run, Cloud. Run away. You have to leave. You have to live. Careful now. That which lies ahead does not yet exist. Our world will become a part of it one day, but I will not end. Nor will I have you end. Cloud, lend me your strength. Let us defy destiny together.
Yeah, this is such an interesting, that first reveal of Sephiroth, in Remake, that appearance. It's a fascinating thing The idea that he is like, he seems to need Cloud for something. And the thing is that it's easy to sort of like disregard it, because in a lot of ways, that's exactly what Cloud was to him in the original FF7. He used Cloud to get the black materia and to essentially revive him, bring the meteor down and the planet. So it lines up well. So you just sort of see that in its own bubble, and you assume it's the same thing, that it's the exact same thing that he asked for Cloud, that we were setting up, that we did before. They're just taking some narrative independence here. They're being creative. They're like, let's just have Sephiroth show up here. But then you sort of stop thinking about it, but then you go, but why? Why do we have Sephiroth in this moment doing this? If he already did this technically in the original game, why do we feel the need to have him then approach Cloud and harass him in some levels that didn't even exist in the original game, telling him like, you need to get stronger, you need to live, you need to continue, right? It's like he is molding him into something beyond simply being a deliverer of the black materia. He's doing something else that we don't know, that isn't actually just the status quo.
Leave me out of it.
How very stubborn of you. Perhaps you need a little push.
A little kiss.
Sephiroth wants the black materia, presumably to call forth a meteor capable of causing catastrophic damage to the planet, as seen in Shinra's visual entertainment hall during Remake and also shown in Rebirth. Guy Natak also all but confirmed this function of the black materia when he begged the party to return it to the Guy.
Our ultimate salvation is cessation. It is nothingness. Our wish is not to exist, but rather to no longer exist.
Yeah, seemingly they want the black materia so they can also bring meteor to destroy the planet. And by destroying the planet, then nothing will stop them from being able to essentially die forever.
It's hard to feel at ease around folks whose only desire is death. And if the planet won't let them have it, well, who's to say they won't let the planet have it?
We ask that you retrieve it. The black materia. Key to our oblivion.
Which, if you really think about it, by the way, like, I don't know why the fuck this stupid blue shithead thinks that Cloud and team are gonna give him this. Like, what is this dumb shithead thinking? Hey, Cloud. Hey, you mind getting that black materia so we can nuke the fucking planet and kill everybody? Yeah, bro, I got you. Sure thing, Gita Talk, you fucking big weirdo. Sure, yeah, here you go. Thanks. All right, I guess we're gonna kill you all now. Okay, here you go. Like, what does he think is gonna happen? Why does he think we're like gonna just give him that? Like, the promise has been made, Cloud. Yeah, but what are you, an idiot? No.
Please. It alone can liberate us from this endless dream.
Sephiroth appears
Think I can't read between the lines?
to help destroy the Whisper Harbinger and break the planet's hold over Destiny so he could take control of the Whispers himself.
God, this fucking music, bro. The soundtrack is godlike.
Perhaps to unbind those who were born on Gaia from the planet and the Lifestream and maybe bind them to whatever Sephiroth wants to create?
They're not bound to the planet, and so she rejects them.
Because you have to come from the Lifestream to return to it.
All born are bound to her. Should this world be unmade, so too shall her children.
So despite his desire to obtain the black materia and summon Meteor...
Oh, that's such an interesting... I'm really thinking about that now, what he's saying in that line. Of this line here.
All born are bound to her. Should this world be unmade, so too shall her children.
He said this shit back in Remake, by the way. If this world is unmade, then the connections to everybody is shattered. And you're like, well, what does he mean by that? Does he just mean we all fucking die today? We all about to demon die today? It's like, no, he's saying that if that connection is shattered, then death is, we all live like the Gi. We're free. We're free from the planet's whims. We don't have to worry about death. We live it. It sounds like to me, at least based on what Sephiroth is setting up here, that Sephiroth actually wants us to live like the Gi by making it so that we are eternal. We never end, right? He even says that to himself. He's like, but I will not end. And I don't know if that's, I feel like he's seeing it as a way to save people. Maybe it's in his own crazy way. For what reason? I don't know. But that seems like he's trying, he thinks he's helping everybody. I hope it's not, the one thing I hope from this is isn't simply a selfish reason, like is Sephiroth afraid himself to die? I hope it isn't simply that. I hope it goes beyond simply just like, I don't want to die, I'm scared of death. I don't think that, I don't know. I think it's more to it than that, I hope.
So despite his desire to obtain the black materia and summon Meteor, outright destruction of the planet doesn't seem to be Sephiroth's actual intent. However, when Sephiroth grabbed the black materia in Rebirth, he called it
the key, which grants access to the true counterpart hidden between worlds.
And we know Sephiroth didn't want the remake Beagle world to have a white materia, because when Cloud still possessed it after his time spent in Aerith's dream world, Sephiroth stated,
yeah,
that doesn't belong here.
That doesn't belong here.
Very poor form.
While we don't have enough information by the end of Rebirth to understand why, the existence of a white materia is clearly not something Sephiroth wants. And perhaps he even formed the singularity at the end of Remake, knowing Aerith would need to use or empty her white materia to modify it as she did, thus his way of getting rid of it. And the concept...
That's an interesting point. Well, it wasn't necessarily like she drained it. The idea was that the Whispers took it away from her. They robbed her of it because they took away her memories. They took away the things that she knew from other worlds as well, right? The Yamni Aerith. Granted, it's an interesting thing because in the original FF7, at least seemingly, it doesn't seem like Aerith had that knowledge, at least to us, the player, right? But in this time, we're seeing things like that suggest that she does, that she knows things that happened in the original and that will come, that will eventually occur at some point. And because she makes like errors like that by saying that, yes, you're a soldier, a mercenary. She didn't say that before until Cloud said it. And this time around, it's like, how many times have you seen this, Aerith? So it's interesting to me that this led to a situation where her materia was essentially sapped of any memories, because those memories existed. That white materia, that didn't happen in the original, right? She had that white materia as it was in that form all the way until her death, right? Where it drops in the water. She replaces it in this game. She gets it. She basically fucks around with the world lines enough to get basically a new version of it. But if she existed in that time without her memories, right, it stands to reason that the materia she would have had then was also empty, but it wasn't. Even though, again, I almost think the suggestion is that the Aerith in the original Final Fantasy VII as well, like she already knew this, right? She just was better at hiding it.
The reunion has been referenced many, many times.
A touching reunion. For the future is bright. We are to bear witness to the reunion of worlds.
Reunion.
And based on some very specific lines of dialogue during the Temple of the Ancients, it seems extremely plausible Sephiroth is trying to reunite all of the worlds which make up the planet with the intention of making it and Jenova whole.
Yet I shall remain. I, son of Genova, will at last claim my birthright. My dominion shall reach into infinity. It shall encompass worlds unbound by fate and histories unwritten. My fragmented mother, these errant worlds, all shall be one again.
The reunion.
All made whole forever.
Ooh, that is a very telling line, isn't it? My fragmented mother. That's definitely the biggest, I would say the biggest, like that line there is definitely the biggest piece of evidence for this theory here.
There's no such thing as forever.
Ah. But there will be.
This statement seems to tie back to what Sephiroth said in the Nibelheim reactor way back at the beginning of Rebirth.
Together we will reclaim our world, and I know exactly how we can do that. The Promised Land. But there's no need to be sad, Mother. Because I'm here for you. Now and forever.
Maybe the Promised Land is not just a specific location in one world as Shinra thought, but instead only exists when all of the worlds are united as one? Sephiroth's every move appears to be leading to a reunification of the worlds of the planet and Genova, as foretold by the Cetra in the Temple of the Ancients.
It's upon us. The reunion, when worlds merge. When spite and sorrow are harvested to feed the planet.
Heed well our warning of that which is to come. The reunion. When our adversaries' scattered malignancy shall converge to plague the planet once more.
Shit. Damn. Okay. Again, context, right? This gives so much context to things that are just like, you'll hear that. There's scattered malignancy. You're thinking in 2D and the game's thinking in 5D. You're thinking, yes, we don't want Genova to continue to get stronger, right? To get summon Meteor. But you have to think about why are we doing this way? Why are we telling the story in the way that we are? Why are we telling it in this way? What is the purpose? Does a world, to having multiple worlds that are doomed to fade, what does that entail? Why? And we now had that was 2 lines now. We're really getting this idea of multiple different Genovas scattered across different worlds. And the funny thing is, you could almost look at what original FF7 was as just one of those worlds. It was seemingly the base world, right? But that was something that was never achieved, a Genova complete. Despite that that being her name in that last fight. Yeah, why go out of your way to tell a story in this way? Other than just, I don't know, man. Fucking shits and giggles. We just wanted to spice this story up. It's like the idea that it's crazy to me because it's really fascinating. I would love to know how long, if this is the grand scope of this story and this narrative, how long they've been cooking with this crazy fucking idea. Because you know what it really screams to me? It screams similar to something that Nomura has done a lot in Kingdom Hearts, where I am certain that a lot of the shit that he set up in that story was not planned, right? All the crazy shit with nobodies, the Kingdom Hearts, the Heart of All Worlds, the fucking Lightyear guiding key, all this extra horse shit that went well beyond the scope of what Kingdom Hearts 1 was, right? It wasn't like he had this insane narrative that went beyond that. But what he did was he set up a bunch of little random pieces, things that he could work with, and then built the story piece by piece from there. But from everything we've heard about this, right? That's what it sort of screams to me is this is a very expertly done way of taking what was an original story, original theory of how this story was going to go and expanding it in a way that feels believable And Nomura, as much as his shit is wacky and it starts to get really needlessly confusing, surprisingly good at keeping it within the canon and keeping it actually making relative sense, even if it was definitely not planned. From what we heard in interviews, this story that they had around Remake was something that formed a long time ago. Like, they've almost been sitting on this idea for so fucking long, which is also pretty cool because it allowed them probably to really go out of their way to fill in sections, to essentially create a narrative that can work in this way, that uses the base story as something that can still exist in this crazy universe and still create something new and fascinating and wild. And I think it's really impressive, like, that they can do this and it's still, you just go, what the fuck? Your brain melts at the idea of it, but it's so weirdly engaging and cool and makes the original better in a lot of ways. At least this idea sounds, again, you know what's actually really impressive too is actually their restraint, right? When making a story like this, goddamn, if I was writing something like this, I would want to go so hard and, like, in Remake Part 1, just tell you all the crazy shit and how it all connects to everything and, like, leave all these huge breadcrumbs. I was like, yeah, but they don't. There's so much of this shit they are really spreading out among these games. That's what I mean by these stories being meticulously crafted. Bro, Sephiroth, in that scene we actually showed here, right, where he says, you have to run away, and Cloud goes, you bastard, and fucking swings his sword down, and we're like, oh, he's pissed, he hates Sephiroth and stuff. We don't get actual clarification and context to that scene until Rebirth, when we see that in the flashback that was word for word what his mom said to him before she died. And then you go, oh. And again, Sephiroth at the edge of creation, it's like saying all this shit, and we're just like playing this for the first time, like, what the fucking, okay, yeah, sure, I get it. This is like a reference to the end of the original game where we omni-slash this bitch to death or something, right? We're just getting it really early for some reason. And then the further you get in, you start to see that, like, no, we're actually building towards something new. Like, they are, like, instead of having this, like, all just kind of clumped on one side of the story, right? They are doing the best job of spreading all of these different varying plot lines like butter on toast and with jam so well across these games. And I think they're actually doing such a good job of it because we get to the end of Rebirth and we have so few fucking answers or any idea where the hell the narrative goes from here, because they really are just waiting. They're being patient as fuck, and they're just waiting for that moment in Part 3 to just fucking fucking kick you in the face with this shit. Boom, bitch. Boom. Here's what it all means. We have waited patiently, the 30-year cook.
And while we've gone over most of the evidence to that effect, there's still one disturbing part of Sephiroth's plan that I still want to address. From what we've seen across multiple worlds, it appears Sephiroth is intentionally hunting Aerith in every world with the intent to kill her. He even confirms as much to Aerith herself, twice.
So this is where you've been hiding, in a world that has accepted its fate. Just as you must.
How can you want this, Sephiroth? How can you want an eternity of loneliness?
Be gone. Your part is played.
With this context, when Aerith runs at the introduction of Sephiroth's theme during the opening of the remake, a whole new meaning is added to that moment. But why would Sephiroth go through such effort? Besides being extremely vindictive, what reason could he have to actively hunt her down? I believe we have a couple of clues to Sephiroth's intent. As we reviewed earlier, after people die and enter the Lifestream, it takes a while before their energy in the Lifestream then gives rise to new life.
In time, yeah.
Sephiroth's endgame has something to do with the creation of a forever, in which the cycle of life and death would be disrupted.
Ah. But there will be. Our world will become a part of it. One day. But I will not end. Nor will I have you end.
Sephiroth has been unifying worlds, resulting in the screams of the planet.
Listen to the planet, Cloud. To her ecstatic cries, her rapture.
Screaming! It's screaming!
What you heard just now were the voices of the planet. Those born into this world, who lived and who died, who returned. They're howling in pain.
Because of him, Sephiroth?
Their words, they don't reach him. All these moments and memories, precious and fleeting, they're like rain rolling off his back. And when they're gone, he won't cry or shout or anything.
From this, we can deduce that if people have died and their essence or consciousness is in the Lifestream at the time those worlds are unified, they may cease to exist. And on the flip side of that coin, what would happen to the multiple versions of everyone who are alive and not in the Lifestream at the time Sephiroth successfully executes the final unification? Do all of the worlds converge and suddenly there's a single version of every living person who ends up in one unified world and live together? But if Sephiroth really is trying to create an eternity where no one dies, it's entirely possible Sephiroth is trying to eliminate Aerith from all worlds prior to executing the final unification, leaving her spiritual energy in the limbo period across all worlds so she wouldn't be present as the remaining Cetra to rival him in the new unified forever Sephiroth is creating.
Oh, that's actually... That's interesting. Because the thing is, like, and the reason why we're all sort of like, what's the point of killing Aerith? If you really think about it. Because if we're going by based on how we've been seeing the story, right? That, well, okay, Sephiroth and Aerith are this persistent, like, they're always there, right? Like, because they're just so fucking powerful and crazy, and they're connected to the planet in this crazy way that, like, they continue to exist. So what's the purpose of even killing Aerith, right? In all of these timelines, it's like, oh, yes, there are all these versions of the different worlds. What's the point of killing her? She's just going to come back. You know this. So, like, what's the point of even doing it? Maybe the idea is that if he manages to kill off every Aerith and send them necessarily to the Lifestream, reunite all of these worlds, let's say he does destroy or end death. People, the cycle of the Lifestream is halted. Those still there will not die, and those who are dead won't come back. Then Aerith has no way of returning in any way. Maybe that's the point. If he completely cuts her off in every possible avenue where she could show up, and then he falls through in his plan, stops death, stops the cycle, Aerith cannot return in any way, and he has no one to stop him. That's interesting.
He has to be stopped by etc. And I'm the last.
So there you have it. We set out to break down the lore and mysteries found thus far in the Final Fantasy VII Remake project, helping us all who were feeling exactly like Zack.
What in the hell is going on?
And make the case for how these puzzle pieces fit together in the way that makes the most sense. If you're with me and everything in this video makes a lot of sense to you too, let us know in the comments. Conversely, if you disagree or have your own takeaways from Remake and Rebirth, let us know as well and share your own thoughts with us. And for those fans who have only played the Remake series and are trying to remain spoiler-free until Part 3, I did my best to record this video without using any of the other information found in the Final Fantasy VII compilation, but I would just recommend being super careful when diving into the comments.
Just go play the original, you fucker.
Case folks share more info than what was found in Remake and Rebirth. A big shout out to Blitz for helping me to give shape to the ideas bouncing around in my head. Go check him out on YouTube, Twitch, and all the socials.
Blitz is the one that
also be sure to check out Kilika Beats, who provided all of the fantastic lo-fi tracks that are found in this video. You can find their awesome video on YouTube and linked in the description as well. And also to my wife, who's been so supportive as I've started diving into content creation. Thank you so much for exploring these topics with me, and I'll see you in the next video.
Good shit, man. Good shit. Definitely gonna like this video. Wow. Wow. Yeah, man. That is a very, very interesting idea. Wow. Fuck. Oh, hey, he's in chat. Hey, dude, fucking awesome video. Wow. That is a really cool idea. I think the thing that really hit me in the end was when you described what Aerith, like her purpose, why like killing her at all? Why was that like, what would even be the point of it, right? What is the point of killing her when we've already sort of made a point that her and Sephiroth are seemingly persistent, right? This never-ending battle, right? So it's like, what's the idea even behind like killing her across all these different timelines or different worlds? Like, what's the point of it? Well, get her in a place where she is literally trapped in the Lifestream and then end the cycle. And she can't stop him then. She's trapped. That's very interesting. A very cool, very, very good video, by the way. Thank you. Yeah, please do go check out. I'm gonna probably have this on YouTube. And I'll have a link in the description for your video and everything. Please go send him some love and make sure to like his video, give him a subscription, because this definitely was a lot of work. That's a really cool concept. It's something that is like you said, I think the idea is, it's such a heady idea, the idea of what the purpose of what any of this reunion stuff, these world lines, these different scenarios are, that I think a lot of us weren't even trying to consider how that shit even worked, because we're just like waiting for them to give us answers. We're just like, I don't know, man. I don't know. Just fucking tell us the answers in part 3. We're like, none of us were like even really sure how to parse that. But the fucking fact that they say on multiple instances, bringing together the fragmented menace, like my mother spread across, like bringing together these like broken pieces. And I'm like, fuck, he did say that. That's crazy. And that's what I mean. So much of this shit is in the game that you just don't connect because you have no context. You have no understanding of what the fuck he's even talking about. But then once you get even just like a little bit of like a theory or an idea of what this could be, you just start going like, oh my God, the yarn ball of theories and ideas starts to unravel. That's really cool. Yeah, if you don't stop and think about them, that is really cool. I think the one thing that I still think needs understanding, right? And I don't know how long you were here for, John. I was positing it partway into the video when you initially gave this idea, which is essentially like, how does it work in terms of like, okay, so we spread Jenova across all these different timelines, right? Or these different worlds, but these worlds are also doomed to fail. They're all like destined to come to an end, to a premature end, right? And the idea too is that between now and then, I'm sure they've had a number of worlds. It's not just like a finite number of like, we have 60 different worlds here, right? Some of them are starting, some of them are ending, some of them are branching off at different spots. If a world ends, what happens to Jenova in that world? Does it move on to the next? Does it wait for a new one to pop up? That's sort of like the idea of like where the actual like understanding of what that structure is starts to feel a little like, I don't know, it gets confusing, right? Because if worlds are just destined to end, would that mean that Jenova would just return? Is it just the end of that version of Jenova and then a new one pops up that still branches off, right? It's so interesting because they're essentially creating an idea of like world lines, but they're not exactly like the regular world lines you would expect from other things like Steins Gate or other time travel media, right? The Lifestream keeps perpetually creating new worlds as others die off and reabsorbs into the Lifestream, keeping Jenova splintered indefinitely. Ooh. That's cool, man. That's a cool answer. That's a cool fucking answer. Shit. There is no beginning, there is no end. There is only the perpetual cycle of divergence. The idea that it's always been that way. So question then for you, John. In your theory, in your mind then, was the original FF7 just another part of these worlds? Or was it maybe the original? Who knows? In this scenario, is there even one true world? Right? Is there one that is like the trunk to a tree? To me, the OG FF7 is just another world than Beagle and Terrier. It is. So it's just another different one. Yeah, he wants to create one infinite world. It's kind of crazy to think that they'd even have a power like that, right? Like, that's a wild scenario, right? That the Cetra were able to essentially splinter off an entire world into different never-ending, like, constantly recycling rivers of worlds. And yeah, it's like your brain then goes like, well, when did this start? When does it end? Because it almost then makes you think like, because then what ends up happening, by the way, with this idea is it becomes what is called the bootstrap theory, right? The bootstrap paradox, right? Bootstrap paradox, which is the idea of when did something begin and when did it end, right? If there was not simply a scenario where it was all born from, right? What happened first, the chicken or the egg? What began first? This timeline divergence thing at the start with Jenova, and at what point did Sephiroth get made? At what point did Sephiroth enter this equation? If there was not just a cause and effect world, was it all happening simultaneously? Is what's happening now simultaneous? Because if that's the case, then that means that the original game, Sephiroth didn't figure this out. He didn't understand that there were different worlds that existed beyond just the scope of this. We've never actually truly seen a complete Jenova, even by the end of Final Fantasy VII Original, right? We never saw, even though that technically was called Jenova Complete, it wasn't actually complete. So you can understand why the planet would have gotten pissed and be like, fine, I'm making some damn whispers to do what I want. Yeah, it's like, and again, no whispers. None of that shit was in the original either. So it's like, instead of it almost being, if that is the case, it's almost not like this game is even a sequel anymore. It's almost like it actually is, which is sort of what they've said, kind of gone on a way. It's like, where it's like a quasi, it is like a remake, sequel, requel, dequel, Beagle. All of this is happening at the same time, potentially, maybe, right? We have another timeline where fucking Polygon Cloud is running around with his big old Popeye arms and shit. But then that's, again, that leads to the question then, but that doesn't seem to be the case, because there is now a version of Sephiroth that has, it's almost like we've been in this eternal limbo of reliving this story again and again, because Sephiroth had to learn that that was what ended up happening, right? In order to lead to a scenario where he then is telling all the other versions of himself across these different timelines, which he got, I guess, by being able to control the Whispers, to go out and kill Aerith all at the same time, right? It is very interesting. That is a fucking cool and wild theory. And I don't hate it. I don't actually hate it either. I think that if that is like where this story is going, that's like, to me, that screams, that's like the mega ultra super end game. Like, I don't even know, to be honest, this idea, like, let's say this is the answer. I almost feel like if this is actually the truth of what is happening, I think that this might be the aspect of the story in the scenario that is never fully explained, right? Like I was just saying before we started this video that I think that by the time we get to the end of part 3, I think that we'll have a lot of answers, but I don't think everything will be explained, because that's just how the original FF7 was as well. They just want to leave some things for you to postulate, to think over, to let simmer in your head. And I almost think that this thing here may not be fully put out into like, well, let's see, it started at this point and then this thing happened and then it led to this moment. It's like, they might put out the idea that yes, there are multiple worlds, that these worlds have Jenova in them, but how they even necessarily came to be, how it came to function in this way, is maybe left more to our interpretation, right? Because it leads to a lot of questions. Again, I feel like the bootstrap paradox, the idea of, well, where was the beginning of all this? Where did it actually start? If you have this constantly happening, if FF7 original is simply just a single branch of this tree and there is no trunk, only branches, right? Yeah, or leading to the next game. I think that part 3 will be pretty self-contained. I think that, but there not necessarily, there's not going to be any more FF7 stuff, because I mean, that makes the big bucks for them. There might be more, there's probably more mobile game shit, you know? We'll get another fucking Fortnite-like, we'll get a fucking battle royale again. We're gonna like, let's try again. We'll do it again. But I think for what we are being set up here, I think everything will be relatively self-contained. And I think it will lead to, if it leads to a reunion, it's funny because I almost feel like that might not necessarily be a bad thing. The idea that this crazy shit that was put into place that could have fragmented Jenova would all come together to form just one place as opposed to all of them. I think the other thing too is the idea of how, if those worlds come together, how does it lead to a world without death? How does that break the cycle of life and death if these worlds do come together? I think that's something we still don't really have an answer for. It might not even be, it might exist outside of that, right? It might just be simply, oh, well, we'll have Jenova come together and form into a complete being. But I feel that, what does that, okay, so that happens, then what? I guess she's just so powerful she can't be stopped. The funny thing is, I think a lot of us, myself and others, were sort of thinking to ourselves that this was going to lead to a scenario where Sephiroth killed Jenova, you know? Like, he's no longer fully subservient to this fucking weird alien microcosm, right? And I almost like that idea, because I sort of like the idea that Sephiroth has his own motivations beyond simply what his weird alien mom wants. We're joining her to kill her for good. Maybe he's doing this, I mean, maybe crazy crackpot theory. What if he's bringing all these worlds together to create Jenova, bring it together, and then he like kills her? Maybe he takes his power for her own or something, right? I'm gonna write my world the way I want it. Like maybe some crazy shit like that. That'd be pretty kind of wild, right? Y'all come together so that I can fucking finish you, because if this is the idea, in the same way that seemingly Sephiroth and Aerith are constant, so is Jenova. One version or fragment might be destroyed, but it'll come back again in a continuous ebb and flow. And hell, she can't return to the planet anyway, so it's not like she can ever truly disappear. I think that's the idea too, right? A world line ends, or a world ends and is destroyed, but that Jenova is constant. It'll come back in another way. Yeah. Damn, this is really cool, man. Fuck, you got my mind reeling and spinning with ideas. Really, really cool video, man. Really fucking cool. That is such an interesting idea. If Sephiroth is successful in merging the worlds, it also allows devs to land the plane of ending part 3 in a similar place to the OG before these remake elements of Worlds and Whispers. Yeah, exactly. It's like it lets them get to a place where they can just, the story is complete, right? Essentially almost like returning to status quo. But in this idea, though, it almost, again, it could lead to a situation where FF7, he was always going to be there. It never truly went away. All right? That was just another branch. Another possibility. I think that then also leads to the question, then, well, what happened to, like, the fractured sky, right? Is that the mark of the end? Does Cloud seeing that mean that this world will end as well? That's such a, like, to me, this is, like, this is what makes this shit fucking fun, right? Like, we've been throwing these ideas out here, even if they don't end up being totally right. It's like, it's such a cool thing to think about, because they're putting in the effort to write a story this insane, and it lets us go in and then also put in the effort to try to figure out their insanity. It's fun. It's so fun. Wow. That's eye-opening. Fuck, dude. Fuck.